Oof. In 1962, the famed science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke published a book called Profiles of the Future, an inquiry into the limits of the possible. It was a collection of essays primarily concerned with, well, the future. It is impossible to predict the future, the book begins, and all attempts to do so in any detail appear ludicrous within a very few years. The book, on the other hand, attempts something different, though no less difficult. It does not try to describe the future, Clarke writes, but to define the boundaries within which possible futures must lie. By the time the book came out, Clarke had already gained a reputation for having an uncanny grasp of the technologies of the future. He wrote about landing on the moon, for example, years before it happened. And he published the paper that popularized and described the concept of satellites in geosynchronous orbit, the machines that power, GPS and stuff. Today, those satellites operate in what's called the Clarke Belt. Yes, named after them. You get it. Anyway, our story actually begins 11 years later in 1973 when a new edition of Profiles of the Future appeared. In the second chapter, revised specifically for this edition, Clarke adds a new footnote, his third law, perhaps the most famous thing he's ever written. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. As 3 laws were good enough for Newton, I have modestly decided to stop there. Glad he's modest. I think about magic a lot these days. More than I thought I would. Modern technology has aspirations to the kind of magic Clarke envisioned. The implicit thrust of every new product launch is, it just works, even if the thing being advertised is fundamentally useless. But I'm not really here to critique the blinkered incrementalism of our tech baron overlords. No, I'm here because the one tech thing that does work like magic is TikTok's For You page algorithm, the secret sauce that powers the app and is almost entirely responsible for its social value. And what it does is actually pretty simple. It learns what you like, and then it shows you more of it. In practice, the effect is mesmerizing, and I mean that kind of literally. TikTok serves you up an infinite scroll of videos catered to your stated and unstated preferences. My For You page is a mishmash of gaming clips, dumbass memes, videos of people forging swords or operating heavy machinery. Stuff that's not terribly hard to find with a search, but which feels absolutely magical when it's served directly into a feed I don't have to do anything to curate. Everyone's feed is different too. There's so much stuff being uploaded to TikTok that there's an infinite number of subcategories to sort users into. The algorithm is so effective at what it does that it's literally reshaped pop culture. Because when something gets stuck in it, when the algorithm decides to show a video across more user niches, that thing becomes immediately popular. It can make an unknown into a star overnight. And I think it's most apparent in music. Okay, so over the last few years, the entire music industry has reoriented itself around TikTok. It's where new artists are discovered, and it's where established artists interact with their fan bases. But above all, it's where hits get made. As the Grammy-winning engineer Will Anspock put it in a recent video, success on TikTok correlates pretty directly with success on Spotify.
TikTok is probably the social media platform that is the most tied to successful plays on Spotify. Like, it's a very direct pipeline. When you see a song on here go off, it is on Spotify going off. And for a very long time, I've recommended artists. In fact, I have an artist that I told to do this. She made a really big splash here on TikTok, and on her very first single that she released, she got like 5 million streams.
If you're an unknown artist trying to break into the industry, TikTok is where you go to get noticed. If your songs get stuck in the algorithm and break containment, so to speak, you're almost guaranteed a major label contract. But, it's not all roses. Up-and-coming artists signed to major labels are obligated to do marketing on TikTok instead of making music, for example.
Do you know what is fucking embarrassing? Having to promote music as a musician. It's embarrassing! I'm so sorry. Having to force your songs down people's throats. Most sick musicians were not built for this new era. Do you know what I mean? Most of my favourite musicians are awkward little weird. Do you think Tom York would have been on TikTok like, did I just make the song of the summer? No. Because people who make beautiful music are weird and awkward. That's why they use music to speak with their feelings. Did I just make the song of the summer?
And the app's bias towards extremely short videos has begun to change the structure of popular music itself. Like, for example, killing the bridge in pop songs, to take just one very representative and egregious example. All of this is only possible because of the agreements the major labels signed with TikTok itself, which allow anyone on the app to use copyrighted music to soundtrack their videos. If I had to guess at the thinking, it's that label heads realized that every play of their songs mattered, that they could cultivate new audiences and promote their catalogs more effectively by latching on to a newish app that's already extremely popular with the demographics they're trying to entice. Also, I'm pretty sure there was a shitload of money involved. Even so, cracks are beginning to show. Recently, Universal Music Group, one of the biggest labels on the planet, decided to pull the entirety of their catalog from TikTok over a breakdown in contract negotiations.
And I'm very sure that Universal, not to parrot what Russ has said on this, but I'm very sure Universal hasn't consulted with his artists at all to make this decision. This is only about Universal getting paid, and it's pretty, standard Universal policy. So good job, Universal. You're only screwing your artists, and it's very clear to everybody else that that's what's going on. So you're not going to be the hero in this one by being like, oh, our artists aren't getting paid. Like, you're not paying your artists. Shut the fuck up.
As a consequence, nobody can use any Universal songs in any videos, otherwise they'll get instantly muted. This goes backwards in time, too. Any video that has Universal songs is now muted, no matter how popular or important it was. This has put UMG's artists in a bind. They can't promote their own music on TikTok.
I just want to speak on behalf of all UMG artists when I say that Drake did not drop meat for nothing. We're all going through it, we're all taking this L, and he would not showcase Johnson if it wasn't serious, all right?
Which impacts their streams and their sales. And I don't think it's a stretch to say that it's probably putting their careers at risk. Obviously, this hurts newer artists more. But it's worth thinking about how we got here in the first place. So, let's go back in time. All the way back to the distant past. 2017. That fall, TikTok's parent company ByteDance acquired a relatively popular lip-syncing app called Musical.ly. They merged Musical.ly with the then China exclusive app TikTok, renaming the combined app, say it with me, TikTok. That's the one we know and love. This new TikTok debuted in America in the summer of 2018 and was almost an instant hit. Its culture developed rapidly, becoming a place for all kinds of short videos, not just the lip syncs that Musical.ly's user base loved. People began posting their own songs, takes, challenges, trends, which both made the app appeal to a wider audience and had the effect of distinguishing it from the other video sites. And then came Old Town Road. It was the first song to really blow up on the newly merged app. Old Town Road premiered in December 2018, just a few months after TikTok launched internationally. In the music press, Lil Nas X's hit country trap single was controversial. Billboard removed it from their Hot Country chart, essentially saying it wasn't country enough to belong there. Or, at least, that's sort of what they told Rolling Stone. Of course, later, Billboard provided a statement to Rolling Stone clarifying things, saying it wasn't about race. I'll save the history of the country music charts for another video. In any case, while the music press was duking it out over whether or not Old Town Road was sufficiently country, TikTok users had turned it into the soundtrack to the Yeehaw Challenge, where people posted themselves transforming into cowhands when the beat dropped.
I got the horses in the bag, horse looks like it's attached. Head is matted black, got the bushes black to match. Riding on a horse, ha, you can whip your...
As Time magazine noted in an interview with Lil Nas X in April 2019, videos with the hashtag Yeehaw, almost all of which sample Old Town Road, have been seen more than 67 million times. Old Town Road shot to the top of the charts shortly thereafter, peaking at number 1 the same month the timepiece was published. What's important to note is that Lil Nas X himself does think TikTok helped the song succeed. In the Time interview, he said, "They really boosted the song. It was getting to the point where it was almost stagnant. When TikTok hit it, almost every day since that, the streams have been up. I credit them a lot." I don't think it's a stretch to say that the success of Old Town Road showed other artists that TikTok was a worthwhile place to post their music. Because who really knows what's going to be the next hit? You know? Anyway. Since then, TikTok has sent a parade of songs onto pop's top charts, new and old alike. Kate Bush's 1985 smash Running Up That Hill and Fleetwood Mac's 1977 hit Dreams both charted in the 2020s because they went mega viral on TikTok, and I'm sure they won't be the last. But anyway, my favorite recent example, though, is by the English band Boa. Their song Duvet got so popular on TikTok that the band announced they were going back into the studio after an 18-year hiatus. According to a 2023 story in Variety magazine, that happened because a label executive discovered Duvet on a viral songs chart and reached out to the band. And that kind of brings us to today. The internet of 2024 is a lot different than the internet of 2018. These days, there's a sense of malaise about what it's like to be and exist online. It's more an obligation than it is a joy. And the things we see online have changed too. Personally, I think it's because social media has finally professionalized. It's finally turned into just entertainment. You've probably noticed it too. All of a sudden, it feels like all online content is made by people who identify with the label content creator, who are savvy enough to translate any online attention into more success for their online brands. And everyone, no matter how small, understands that it's important to present your best, most brandful self online, because anything you make can go viral. There's a truism of social media networks that breaks down to a pretty simple observation. Most people who are on social media sites don't post. And I think that now the people who do post understand it's much more profitable to become an online brand and occupy a specific niche. I think TikTok had a lot to do with that shift, because its algorithm sorts viewers into niches, otherwise known as sides on the app, like this side of TikTok, or that side of TikTok. It has become more legible and profitable to appeal to a known niche than ever before. And because TikTok is so popular with young people, the people who do in fact drive culture, the logic of the platform has extended itself across the entire internet, which helps explain the rise of short-form videos as a format and not just the province of one platform. But what's really changed is how we conceptualize success online. It's easy to forget that about a decade ago, nobody really knew what to do with people who became famous online. Like, it wasn't obvious that they'd star in Super Bowl commercials or ink TV deals or find huge amounts of success in the music industry.
Bam! Miranda, you're famous. Hey, Miranda. The usual?
I just uploaded a video to the internet.
This new professional state of affairs is a reflection of the fact that we've finally figured out what to do with influencers, culturally speaking. They're the new faces of advertising, the new film and TV stars, and the hottest up-and-coming pop acts. And what's really interesting is how traditional celebrity has begun to change in response. Now people who are already famous by virtue of their skill in acting or sports or whatever have begun to understand that it's profitable to assume the trappings of the influencer. I think one of the best examples of that phenomenon is T-Pain. He's incredible on TikTok and Twitch, not just because he's charming and charismatic, but also because it's wild to see into the life of a guy that famous.
Am I overall happy? My nigga, absolutely. This is about being the happiest I've been in about the last, a lot. A lot. I've been very, very sad and fucked up for a long time, but my wife has been there for me a lot. But you know, career-wise, if you're talking about career-wise, happiest I've ever been. I'm actually in control. I got a good team around me. Yeah, I'm happy as shit.
The feedback loop between celebrity and social media celebrity is fascinating. And I think genuinely new. Kind of. We've created a new, durable form of celebrity just through the power of our collective attention. Which is why I think it's probably fair to say that individual creators are now more understood than they've ever been. And even though there's so much more competition for attention, it's still possible to carve out a living working in a niche you actually like. In retrospect, it feels obvious that TikTok would become the most popular social media site in America. It melds frictionless, free distribution with a powerful, on-device set of editing tools. And it's popular enough that the movers and shakers in society have to pay attention to it. TikTok started its cultural takeover with music. It changed the entire nature of how people find songs and artists. It changed the composition of the Billboard music charts enough that there's now a TikTok-specific top 40. The app reaches more than 1 billion people a month. The scale of this thing is unimaginable. What's interesting is that you can see just how influential TikTok has already become outside of the music industry. It's swallowed, for example, the entire marketing industry whole. These days, its trends can make a brand literally 10 times more valuable overnight. You can see the company's influence everywhere now, even if you don't use the app. It's probably most prominent in the algo speak its users pioneered, unalive, segs, watermelon people, and the rest of it. It's not quite George Orwell's Newspeak, because in Orwell's Brave New World, the language was meant to dissuade people from exploring abstract notions of the self and identity. And this is language explicitly meant for that purpose. That said, TikTok's algospeak did in fact come out of a conception of large-scale censorship. The belief that the algorithm would lower the reach of your video if you included certain words and concepts deemed unsavory. Which is to say, unmonetizable. Stuff that advertisers won't pay to put their ads next to. And I think it's things like this that have people so worked up about TikTok. They're trying to figure out what it means, culturally speaking, and whether it's good or bad or something else entirely. It's hard to say what TikTok means for American culture, even as it's become very obvious that it is the engine of American internet culture. Part of that disjunction, I think, is because we're still not sure where the internet fits into our lives. Like, the early COVID-19 pandemic certainly moved the experience of being online to the forefront of the American psyche. Because for many people, for a while, it was the main way you interacted with the outside world. And those impacts are still being explored. Like, for example, the current work from home debate among CEOs kind of boils down to the bare fact that executives just aren't used to seeing empty desks from their corner offices. TikTok began to drive American culture during the initial pandemic lockdowns. It was another way to see the world and to document your own little piece of it. As the rest of the social internet has declined in relevance, TikTok has only become more important. Part of that is because of its opacity, its algorithmic mystique, in other words. Part of that is because it can launch almost anyone into the kind of internet stardom that opens very lucrative doors IRL. And another part of it is the app's inherent insularity, the way it sorts its users into different communities. But I think the biggest reason TikTok is important to culture, generally speaking, is because it is one of the few things that has genuinely changed it. And I mean that! To take just one representative example, HBO's TikTok account is now posting serial vertical video recaps of The Sopranos, a 25-year-old television show that defined television when it was on the air. Implicit here, of course, is the idea that TikTok is where the new audiences are. Also implicit, the idea that you can distill one of the best television shows America has ever produced into 30-second chunks. But the real change TikTok has ushered in is in further blending art and commerce. Or, if you prefer, blending the act of creation with thinking about how the algorithm might receive and perceive your work. And that, I think, instills in its creators a new kind of understanding about how culture moves and breathes. One that's, shall we say, a little out of joint with how it's historically been made. This is not inherently a bad thing, I don't think. You know, paradigms change. But it is telling that we call TikTokers creators regardless of what they do or make. That's a flattening that sidesteps the harder question of whether what you're making is worth serious consideration. Which, naturally, mirrors the way TikTok is consumed. As an endless scroll that reacts to its own creation. Something seamless, smooth, and ready for easy consumption. Because anything harder to digest gets downranked by the algorithm.